buddy MonHunMatt. Welcome back to another episode of Monster Hunter Lore. Today I want to talk a little bit about Fatalis and kind of the whole Great Wyvern War that happened way long ago. It's so ancient that there are almost, or at least little to no records of what actually happened. All we can do is kind of speculate, go off of what we actually have, and that's kind of about it. So the Great Wyvern War was a war that it's so ancient, so long ago, that we barely have any records, as I said, and it's basically about how the humans or Wyverians, which are like a kind of breed of monster and human, kind of, but not really, kind of their own thing, but they have dragon-like qualities, and they are basically shaped like humans. But the war is between them and monsters themselves. So this colony of man, who I'm going to call Schrade, based on their kind of region that they inhabited mainly. I mean, they were kind of all around, but they were mainly in Schrade, both east and west Schrade. But Schrade were basically the very first true settlement on the world of Monster Hunter after the whole White Void and all that. Dragons giving them the scales, and then they make their own world. At least a bunch of them went to the kind of northwestern kind of area of this new continent that they made, and they made Schrade. Everything was going pretty normal so far, nothing too bad or anything. They were just kind of living peacefully, hunting what they needed, until basically the Industrial Revolution, I guess you could say. They learned how to make machines, both in the variety of weapons and just kind of machines themselves to help with mining, production, all this kind of stuff, battle. But these machines kind of came with a hefty price. Basically, one big machine costed like a few Kushaladora skin, or a few Kushaladoras themselves, because Kushaladora are made out of this really durable, really nice metal. So after they learned how to make machines, they kind of forgot about their old ways of protecting the environment, being only hunting what they needed, and they just went crazy because this was the new thing. They wanted to make more and see what they could do, so they slaughtered a bunch of mostly Kushaladora, but also other monsters for their materials, and they made things like charge blades, switch axes, gun lances, all those kinds of things. But the ones that we have are kind of relics from the past that we kind of fixed back up to the best that we could. So there's probably like 50 other things that were just completely wiped out and we can't even recreate. So our weapons were probably very dulled down versions of what they had back in the past. As they slaughtered, monsters started to look back and they were like, yo, this can't happen. You're killing too many of us. This is disrupting the balance. We can't have this happening. So they started to fight, thus starting the whole Great Wyvern War. And if you look at places like the, not really Rottenvale, but like the Primal Forest, these giant rib cages, these giant bones that you can find, those are all bones from what the monsters looked like way back when, during the war. So what we see now are a very de-evolutionized version of what they used to be. Kushala could have been so much bigger and so much more powerful than we see it. So when we get to the supposed equal dragon weapon, that'll put some perspective into how much resources that actually takes up. So as they were fighting, they were also kind of making more machines, making new weapons, dragonators, cannons, ballista, basically everything that you need, demolishers, stuff like that. Until they had this wonderful, brilliant idea that may not actually be a thing that is actually true. Basically, in the concept art book of Monster Hunter, I don't have it personally, but I had a friend that had it and I looked through it, so I can vouch that this is actually in there. But essentially in that book, they talk about something called the equal dragon weapon, which I say, since it's not totally confirmed and it's basically some concept that was scrapped, at least for now, I'm saying that it's more of a folk story, folk tale, spooky haunted story type thing that you tell your friends on Halloween. But basically, it says that it's this amalgamation of machine and organic parts. Basically, a cyborg dragon made out of dead dragons, kind of like Kushala. Mainly Kushala, actually. It's said that it would take around, like, what was it, like, I forget exactly how much. I'll put it on screen right now, but it's like 5 to 12 or something Kushala just to make one. And seeing how big that is, and how big Kushala is, I feel like Kushala were a lot bigger, a lot stronger, and just so much more different than what we actually see now, which kind of makes sense because they did go through de-evolution. Basically all monsters and even us humans were going through a state of de-evolution. So the equal dragon weapon, we don't know if it's a real thing. All we know is that it's an amalgamation of machine and metal, machine and organic parts from monsters that could combat very well against other monsters, because that's basically what it was designed for. It's a just absolute tank of a siege weapon, and we don't know where they put it, if it's even real. If they did put it somewhere and it's actually real, then either that's a folk story come true, or the guild is hiding something from us and it's in some bunker way out in the middle of nowhere. But even if this weapon isn't real, it doesn't really change anything. It's just kind of a insight to how they would have gone about this. But what we do know is true is the tower, the other tower, which is the Sky Corridor, and the cloud viewing platform. Basically, the tower is, and the tower and the Sky Corridor, and probably even the cloud viewing platform or fortress, are made out of almost exclusively Kushala. These ancient people really had a distaste for Kushala, didn't they? They used them constantly. Probably because their skin's made of metal, and that's probably a much more beneficial way to get ore and stuff, but I don't know. But basically, thousands upon thousands of Kushala Daora were used to make these towers, these fortresses, and again, the monsters were having none of this. They fought so hard back. Basically, all of this stuff that they were doing, mainly to Kushala, was essentially the trigger point to actually starting the war. But who knows for certain? After a while of fighting something known as Fatalis, that's not even his true name, it's more just kind of become his name because the ancient people were mainly like Fatalis as like a theoretical thing that would end the war. It was more of a moniker than an actual name for it, but all we know is that it's called Fatalis, at least now. So, yeah. Basically, Fatalis awoke, and he was like, nah, I'm not having this shit. Nope, you guys need to stop. You know what? I'm gonna wipe out your whole civilization in like a couple days. How's that sound? He flew all over the world, or at least the old world, and basically lit it and turned it to flames in just a few days, pretty much. Fatalis is truly something else. He is known as the Black Dragon, which the classification Black Dragons are basically gods who you really, really, really don't want to mess with. They can cause massive destruction in one area if left there for a few hours. It's absolutely insane how powerful they are. But Fatalis finally ended his assault at the very famous Castle Schrade. Once he wiped out almost everybody, he set up camp there essentially and used the ruins of Castle Schrade as his home, and that's why we see him almost exclusively there. I mean, yes, you can find like Crimson Fatalis in the volcano in the Eagle Isle. Yes, but I mean, that's kind of what he is. It's a Fatalis that went to a very remote volcanic area, and basically his skin has turned red, crimson, and he's just extremely angry. A white Fatalis is a Fatalis who is ancient. They are like the oldest they can get. They grow white hairs or white fur. Their scales actually go white. They get a beard, and they lose control of fire, but they gain control of red dragon lightning, which dragon is kind of like the basic element throughout all of Monster Hunter. Rage Gaming has a video on that. I do recommend going and seeing that one because it is quite interesting on how dragon element works and what it actually is. After the assault on the humans, the remaining humans had to kind of dial it back. We devolved into what we see now. Basically, it put us all the way back in the Stone Age and we had to rebuild. But it also did that for the monsters because of the high amount of losses that the war had cost them, and even some accidental kills from Fatalis, because Fatalis was in a rage and didn't really care what he was seeing. Basically, if it moved, it was dead. And that's why everybody fears it now. While back then everybody did fear it, but it wasn't as much, especially for monsters. But yeah, that's kind of it for the Great Wyvern War. I may revisit this subject if I learn anything new or anything, but for now, that's all I really have. So hit the subscribe button if you want to. You can hit the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload. And yeah, with that being said, for all things Elder Scrolls and Monster Hunter, we got you covered. This means gameplay, lore, and much, much more. Hope we cross paths again, Hunter. Happy hunting.